All right. Hello and welcome everybody to this live broadcast from the bridge. A short while ago, Anush Agarwala participated in the dressage competition at the Olympic Games in Paris. This was historic in many ways, as this was the first time that an Indian was participating in the dressage competition at the Olympics game. To talk about this moment, we have with us Fouaad Mirza. Now, Fouad is an equestrian champion himself. He won 2 silver medals at the Asian Games in 2018 in Jakarta. He's an Arjuna awardee, and more importantly, Fouad also participated at the Tokyo Olympic Games in 2020 at the equestrian competition back in Tokyo. Fouad, thank you very much for joining us. It's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much, Rahul, and thank you very much for that introduction.
Yeah. Did you manage to catch Anush's performance, Fouad? What did you make of it?
Yes, absolutely. I had a look at him do his test. I thought it was very brilliantly executed, and was technically very, very correct. Unfortunately, in my opinion, maybe the horse lacked a slight bit of self carriage, but apart from that, it was a brilliant performance. I have to say, I was very impressed what Anush did out there.
Just so we can give some perspective to the audience watching this broadcast, right? So a lot of us are familiar with equestrian, right? Obstacles. There's a rider, there's a horse, and you jump over a set of obstacles, and there's a score at the end of it. Talk us through dressage very briefly as well, please.
So dressage is let's say it's a dance. A horse and rider dance through a certain set of movements which are already pre set. Horses and riders have to follow a test basically, which they perform in an arena, and they're then judged by a panel of judges on how well they executed those movements and how correct and well presented they were. So that's just dressage in a nutshell. Of course, there are various other aspects and points that we have to go, look at as horses, look at as riders and as judges and so on. But that's dressage for you in a nutshell. It's slightly complicated, but once you get into it and you start to understand it, it becomes very, very easy.
And how does someone get into dressage? Obviously, you've got to have some sort of history as a rider, correct?
Yeah. Look, there are three equestrian disciplines that, and one is dressage, the other show jumping and eventing. Dressage is the discipline which doesn't have any obstacles to jump or navigate out on the cross country or anything. And I suppose it really depends on the rider's taste and what they fancy or what they like. So some riders prefer to ride horses only in the arenas and want to do want to train and learn dressage. The others want to do jumps and cross country. So it just depends. And also, they're breeding horses now specifically for each of these disciplines. So, even the horses become very specific to each of these three disciplines.
That's
So
interesting. So,
it's
just
very
out of
much.
curiosity, right? So, how does a horse heading into a dressage event differ from a horse that's heading into show jumping?
So a horse that is possibly doing dressage will obviously have much better movement. When I say movement, his natural gaits are flashier. When I say flashier, they're more expressive. They're very eye-catching. And whereas a show jumper, he would have slightly shorter legs, a bit more power off the floor to jump the fences, maybe not as elegant as a dressage horse would look like, but yeah, these small things. I mean, hard to explain uh, in a general conversation, but I think once the viewer or the audience can look at the sport live, and then if they're getting an essence of what it looks like, what it should be, and then you can very easily see the differences between each of the types of horses and so on.
Right. And uh, I just want to touch upon the fact that this is the first time that India has had representation in dressage at the Olympics. You've been at Tokyo yourself. We've had riders in the past, right? Going all the way back to 1996, I would imagine. Was it Los Angeles? We had,
Atlanta, yeah.
yeah, Atlanta, 1996 Atlanta. We had participation there as well. In Sydney as well, there were several riders, right?
In
So
that sense, yeah.
that's right. Yeah. And then, so tell me, give me some perspective of how significant this is, Anush's participation in dressage.
It's huge. It's huge, particularly in dressage, because one, it's never been done before, and it's difficult to qualify. So Anush has done an amazing job to get India the quota place, and then also obviously participate in the Olympics, because that's a huge feat. And I think after this performance, particularly after his performance in the Asian Games, or the Indian team's performance at the Asian Games, the 22 Asian Games, which took place last year due to the coronavirus and so on, that will boost the sport. I mean, it is huge. It's of huge significance to equestrian sport in India, and particularly riders who want to take up dressage, because Anush is a pathfinder. He's going to show all the young guns out there that it's possible, and hopefully there's a surge to follow of young Indian equestrians who want to do dressage and all the other disciplines.
Correct. And that's always the case, isn't it? You need there's someone to break the glass ceiling, and then more will follow.
Yes,
And we're hoping
yes.
that will be the case now that Manu Bakar has won 2 bronze medals for
Mhm.
that particular sport. But also just give us a sense of the nature of engagement for equestrian sports in India, particularly for.
I think it's on an upward spiral. Uh, you know, Especially with the success they had last year at the Asian Games, some of the success we had in 2018. You are seeing a lot of younger riders wanting to take up this sport seriously, and looking to do it not only as a hobby but professionally as well. And we're definitely moving in the right direction. You see that there are a lot of new establishments, riding establishments coming up throughout India, that are, that have international surfaces, bringing down international coaches, importing horses. They are now also breeding horses specific to each of these three disciplines in India. So, just it is growing. It's something that will take time. It's something that is also very expensive, and things like media coverage would really help the sport, and participation of sponsors and patrons in helping riders compete internationally and so on, to make it on the international stage. And I'm very confident that we will be a force to reckon with in these over these three disciplines, dressage, jumping, and eventing. um, and look, Anush is flying the flag for us here in Tokyo, and he's doing a great job. And I'm sure by Los Angeles we could possibly also have a team for dressage. I don't think that's a shot in the dark. I think that's very, very possible.
So, which means that there's already a bunch of people who are
Yes, there there are.
competing at
Yes, I
dressage.
know. Absolutely, there are people that are eyeing that. They're looking at that now, which is great, because you need time in this sport, as it's a partnership between horse and rider. So time is very, very important. You can't rush into something with the horse. You have to grow together. It's like, for example, Anush's story. He's been based abroad for many years now. So it's just a testament to his hard work and his partnership with his horses that's got him so far.
Yeah, there are a couple of aspects from what you mentioned that I want to pick up on. One, of course, is the partnership between the rider and the horse, and I'll come to that in just a bit. But just before that, you mentioned the point about the sport being expensive, right? And
Mhm.
that's understandable, which also perhaps limits its accessibility to the masses. Now, give us an idea of how an individual trains with a given horse and of course travels with the same horse to the event location, right? And I guess that takes a huge amount of logistics and planning and money, of course.
Absolutely. And For example, within Europe, it's fairly easy because a lot of the countries are very easily accessible by road. So the logistics of it are, of course, there's a lot of organizing to do, but it's doable, and it is very expensive, definitely. Traveling horses, there's a lot of risk involved, and we have to take into account many aspects, safety and so on. Um, and what is slightly difficult is when, for example, if you're based in India, to then start to when you start looking at flying horses, then it gets into another league of expenses, if that makes sense. Um, so it's very important that we have sponsors and patrons that come in to help riders achieve their dreams and so on.
Right. And thereafter, of course, the point about the connection between the rider and the horse itself, right? So how long does that process entail?
Yeah. So sorry, I missed that point. It's we as an equestrian, you're there 7 days a week, all day, looking after your horses and taking care of them and exercising them and training them. So being around them and spending time with them already starts this sort of is this it's the beginning of the relationship between horse and rider, and you start to become friends. You start to become brothers in arms, uh, and uh, and then when you spend time training, that is actually training your performances or working on your program or your dressage test in Anush's case, you start to figure out what your partner likes, what he doesn't like, figure out what makes him tick, what's good for him and what's not. And it's just something that takes time to develop, but once it's in it's let's say fully developed and flourishes, it's there's no feeling like it in the world. Especially any connection with any animal is something special, and to
Yeah,
be able
when
to do that with a horse at the highest, at the pinnacle of our sport, the Olympic Games, is it's something else.
yeah, and how long does it take to build this bond, Fouad?
It takes time. It takes time. I don't think you can put a set period on it, or a set time frame on it. But this is something that takes time, and some horses you bond with quicker than others. Maybe they're similar to you in personality, and so on. And some horses take a little bit longer than some, but um, I would say as long as you're there every day and you care for your horses and you really look after them well, it will come sooner rather than later, let's say.
Yeah, and I just wanted to understand the preparation that goes into a performance as well, right? For instance, athletes, they have their routine. They have to eat a specific meal before the event. There's a warm-up routine. What happens here in dressage?
Yeah, so absolutely. Pretty much exactly that. For example, I'm not too sure about Anush's case, but just as an overall general, he will start for the warm up or preparation for his dressage test. He would start with stretching the horse in the beginning, whilst being on it, of course, and walk first so that the muscles get loose. That he can have him supple to both directions, left and right, and then he will start to warm up the muscles in trot and in canter. And then he will run through some of the movements that he has set out in his test. If he needs to do a few flying changes or train his half passes, he will run through some of those movements before doing his test. And then once the horse is fully warmed up, he might run through parts of his test just before going in, and then when he's ready and when his time has come, he will step into the ring and do his performance. From a diet standpoint, yes, the horse's diets and also the rider's diets are looked into. But in the horse's case, he's depending on his his physique, depending on his mind frame. They're all fed specific diets to what they require to help them get the best performance and help them stay as healthy and as fit as possible.
Yep, and and Anush himself today was placed ninth in his group. He was unable to obviously progress because the top two from every group, go on to the next stage, right? But having said that, how do our riders in the equestrian sport compare, Fouad, with the best in the world at the moment?
I don't think we're far off. I honestly don't think we're far off, but we need to keep at it. Anush, what Anush is doing, similar to myself and another very good Indian equestrian, Marek Sani, and many others. You mentioned Hriday Chedda, who was also a part of the Asian Games gold medal team last year for the dressage. They're based abroad. They're working really hard, honing their skills, training, improving. And, one day they will get a very, very good horse. And I sometimes believe you're only as good as your horses to do well in this sport. But that doesn't mean to say if you get a good horse, that's the end all and be all. No, you have to be able to ride. You have to be able to be a horseman. You have to be able to handle the pressure. You have to be able to do many other things to actually deliver on that day. And I think India potentially can tick all those boxes. I think we're very hardworking. We have the perfect build to be equestrians, and I think our history with animal rearing and even horses goes back a long way. So it's in every Indian's blood, and I think it won't be long. It won't be long till who knows, even LA could be something great for us. But I think we take it one step at a time. We have the Asia Championships next year. I hope we field teams in all three disciplines, and then of course the Asian Games in 2026, the World Equestrian Games in 2026. So there's a lot for Indian equestrian sport to look forward to, and I'm sure we're not going to be there just to take part. We're probably going to be there to take over very soon.
It's great to hear as well. I just have another couple of questions before we finish. One of those involves, the profession of equestrian sports in itself, right? Because the sport is such that it hasn't been commercialized as much as some of the other sports in India, such as football or cricket, for that matter, right? Is an equestrian professional, a full-time equestrian professional, or does he or she rely on another day job to keep themselves sustained while they do this as well?
Yes, it depends, and that's why I initially mentioned that we desperately we really need participation of sponsors and patrons to help with everything, the expenses and the financial aspect of it. And sometimes that's why you see some professional equestrian athletes that also have another occupation to be able to sustain or their sporting life as an equestrian. So,
Can
but
you give
having
us an idea of what some of the others are doing? What kind
so
of professions they have?
it could be anything from lawyer to dentist. For example, a friend of mine, a German friend of mine, Klaas Remaike, his father, Henrik Klaas Remaike, won gold in Beijing, and his main profession was he's a dentist, and that was his full-time job. And he would ride after his work at his dental clinic, and he
And
won
what are
gold
our Indians back home doing for a living?
Oh well, in India, I would say there. I know many friends of mine who work. I know a friend of mine who's a pilot, who's riding horses outside his flying hours, and many other occupations. But we desperately need, for many of my other friends in India, it would be so much easier, and if they were able to solely focus on their sport, let's say, and their profession as an equestrian, rather than having to juggle two lives, let's say.
Sure, sure. And final question to you. Now that people back home have seen Anush and what he's been able to do in terms of qualify and then perform at the Paris Olympic Games, what can be done now to perhaps get more people into equestrian sports? What are your thoughts on that?
I think Anush, just the fact that Anush even got there. I mean, let alone how his performance went. He's done a very good job there, I have to say. But the fact that he's been the pathfinder for equestrian sport in dressage, you will see he's shown people now that it is possible. So that's number one. And I think now that we have these other smaller championships coming up, I think you're going to see a lot of Indian equestrians aiming for those. And thank you for the media coverage, especially on equestrian sport. I think that's going to help a lot as well. It's going to potentially reach more people. And I hope if they're making a decision and a point in their life where they have to decide whether they want to take up equestrian sport professionally or take up another occupation. I hope they choose equestrian sport, because there is possibility for us to do well. Anush has shown it, and yes, of course, we need help from patrons and sponsors along the way, but I do think that will also come, and yeah, it's that's about it.
Perfect. And yeah, I mean, we will keep, we will stay on the lookout for more such outcomes. And hopefully, this will be the first of several appearances on the world stage. Fouaad Mirza, thank you very much for speaking with us today.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you.
Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us today.